It is Y105, Dubuque's number one hit music station. My name is Steve Pulaski. I got to chat with this gentleman when I was broadcasting live over at Kennedy Mall. Was super excited to meet him. And if he himself isn't interesting enough, his origin story and how he came to Dubuque is interesting as well. As an out-of-towner myself, I gravitate toward the out-of-towners I've noticed in my life. So I am really happy to welcome him in the studio. He is Caleb Keling. He is the owner of the Auntie Anne's location in Kennedy Mall. Caleb, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Caleb. I really want people to know your story because I think this is cool. First things first, where are you from?
I'm from a town in Missouri called St. Joseph, about the same size as this one, about an hour from Kansas City.
Where did you go to school?
Went to school at Missouri Western State University.
What did you study, business?
Yeah, so I studied business management with a concentration in human resources.
And how did you wind up with the Auntie Anne's location in the mall?
So it was because of where I went to school, actually, is how I ended up here. Every year they have a competition in which they give away a different franchise. A lot of the times it's a Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory or, in this case, an Auntie Anne's, but each year they give away one to the winner of a competition. The competition includes writing a business plan with a bunch of detailed financial models and presenting that plan and a presentation that we create about a certain franchise to a panel of about 15 judges.
So that is no easy task. And you told me at the mall when I first met you, this was kind of like a 5-6 year plan, something like that, to try to win this franchise.
Yeah, it was a long time coming. It all started whenever I was a junior in high school. I was sitting in class in one of my business classes, and one of the former winners and the teacher of this class that you have to take to compete came and talked to us about this opportunity. And after hearing her story, how she won an aspen leaf, actually, and about the opportunity that was at this school, that's why I decided to go to Missouri Western in the first place. And that's why I decided to compete in that competition. And so I went and studied business for about 4 years with the sole goal of winning a franchise.
He's Caleb Keling, the owner of the Auntie Anne's location in Kennedy Mall right here in Dubuque. I just find that story so unique. Walk me through the day or the moment that you found out you won this contest.
So it was the day of the competition whenever I found out I won. I competed in the morning. I gave my presentation, and leading up to this, there's a preliminary competition as well where they sort of weed out some people that are a little bit less likely to win, and so they only have, I don't want to say really good competitors, but like more competitors that are more likely to win.
The cream of the crop.
Yeah, for the actual competition. That preliminary competition, it didn't go amazingly for me. Even though I was good enough to pass on, obviously, but it didn't go amazingly for me. There were quite a few problems with my presentation, and so I went and I practiced it over and over again. I presented in front of the teacher for this class. Her name is Pam Kloss. I presented in front of her. She gave me feedback. We worked on it and got better and better. And day of the competition, after I presented, I remember thinking that was better than any practice presentation I'd ever done. I was truly just living in the moment, doing my best. I said every sentence was practiced and came out just the way I wanted it to. And I remember feeling really good about my performance. And so after my 15-minute presentation and about 45 minutes of questioning from the judges, I went back to a waiting room where I had to wait for about an hour for them to make this decision.
That wasn't grueling, I imagine.
I don't think I stopped pacing for about 2 hours, about 2-hour wait. I was pacing around in a circle until eventually Stephen Craig, the benefactor of the competition, the person who puts up the collateral so that we can get loans for this, sort of the person who started this competition, he comes in with Pam and they say, well, Caleb, you nailed it. You won. And I remember thinking just all of those 6 years sort of culminated in that moment. Just hearing him say those words, it was indescribable. I was sort of in a state of shock.
You seem like you still are.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy reliving that moment, just seeing them walk back in there, and kind of funny how nonchalant he was about it because, he does it every year. But for me, it was a very big deal because, that's life-changing to go from a college student to, owning your own franchise. And not only that, but a very successful franchise. It was already making about $500,000 in sales before I took it over. And so I went back into, they took me out of there, and they had like a press conference area set up, and went over there. I talked to everyone there. They had a couple news outlets there to talk to me from St. Joseph, and the person that actually told us about the competition to begin with whenever I was in high school was one of the judges. And so I went back up to her, and I told her, I sort of mentioned that story throughout the competition, but I didn't say who it was. And I told her that it was her. And that was a pretty crazy moment as well.
Did you know that what you were getting, like the Auntie Anne's location in Dubuque? Did you know that was going to be what you were going to win?
That's a really good question. So leading up to taking the class, we had no idea what the franchise would be or where it would be located. And so before signing up, we have no idea. We just want a franchise. We don't know what it is, where it is, any of that. We just want a franchise. And they told us about 2 weeks into taking the class where it would be and what it was. Because that's sort of the crux of the business plan, is how we're going to take this specific franchise and make it better. And so we found out about 2 weeks in that it was this Auntie Anne's in Dubuque, Iowa. And I'd never heard of Dubuque, Iowa. And I've heard of Iowa, but I hadn't heard of Dubuque before. And so part of me was like, oh, that's too bad, but at least I'll get to own a business. But after studying it, I was like, oh, this is actually a really cool place. This is really neat. And after living here, it's a really nice place. I really like it.
I'm glad to hear that. Again, Caleb Keling, new owner of Auntie Anne's in Kennedy Mall. So fast forward after you uproot your life and everything. I know what that's like, believe me. And you get moved in and everything, and now you're set up and rolling. Just had a ribbon cutting a couple of weeks ago, too, for you over at Kennedy Mall, too. So how's things going, I guess? Feel free to talk about Auntie Anne's. I think we all know it in name, but I think if you haven't had it in a while, it's one of those things, if you have not had it in a while, it is absolutely delicious. Pretzels, pretzel dogs. I want to kind of give you the floor just to talk about Auntie Anne's, some things that you're doing, the plan going forward.
Yeah, things are going great. Things, like I said, it's a great location. There's a lot of traffic here. If you're in the mall, just make sure you stop by, say hi, grab a pretzel, grab a drink, grab a dip your pretzel in. Yeah, make sure to stop by. One other thing that I'd like to mention about how business is going and everything is that I really wouldn't have been able to do this without my parents. So they moved with me about 6 hours away from St. Joseph, and they were working in the store for that first week. And to this day, my dad is still working in the store. That's how I'm able to be here right now, because my dad is over there making the pretzels and everything. So very grateful for him for also he was retired anyways, but for also coming up here with me to help me get everything started.
That's incredible. So it really is a family affair then, too.
Yeah.
Again, Caleb Keling with Auntie Anne's over at Kennedy Mall. Anything else that you would like to note? You had a funny little thing you told me off air about your first sort of entrepreneurial endeavor and how this comes full circle. I want you to share that.
So my first entrepreneurial endeavor, again, it goes back to high school. We were in a class where we were supposed to create a product and then sell that product. And so an example of this is one group, they got cookies from Walmart, and then they went from class to class and they sold those cookies for more than they bought them for, right? So what my group decided to do, again, I did not make this decision. It was my two other group mates that made this decision, but we got soft pretzels and then we put them in a crock pot in the middle of the lunchroom, and we sold them to everyone during lunch. We sold soft pretzels. And now my first, not that wasn't a real business, but my first actual business is an Auntie Anne's, which I think is pretty crazy how that ends up.
Perfect circumvention right there.
Yeah.
Check out Auntie Anne's in Kennedy Mall. You know where to find it. It's right in Center Square. The man behind it is wonderful. I greatly appreciate you joining me today, Caleb. Again, he's Caleb Keling, the new owner of Auntie Anne's right here in Dubuque's Kennedy Mall. Caleb, a real pleasure to chat with you today.
Thank you. Real pleasure chatting with you too.